Right.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mark Zusman, the editor of Willamette Week. I am just delighted and fortunate to be here with Michelle DePass, your Chief Executive Officer, President of Meyer Memorial Trust. Have I missed the title?
No, but you did miss my middle initial. I go by Michelle J. DePass.
Oh, excuse me.
Because, we have a member of the school board by the name of Michelle DePass. And just want to make sure folks know that I'm the other one.
Anyway, can you talk a little bit about your foundation and your goals and how they may have shifted?
I always say my predecessor and the staff turned the ship of this institution and towards the commitment for equity, and I am bringing it into deep waters. So today, right now, this represents the moment that I think I've been working for my entire career, like 30 years as a civil rights lawyer, a constitutional rights lawyer, a dean of a university that supports young people. I am reading, learning, protesting. I am absorbing, and I'm of this moment. So what does that mean for the institution that I run? First of all, we've been thinking more along the lines of what we can do since we all went into our shelter in place, and ever since COVID-19 really came barreling into Oregon. And we immediately redesigned the way we were doing things. We immediately switched to general operating support instead of program-specific report. We provided opportunities for folks to not do the typical reports that they do. Like all of the sacred cows went out the window immediately, and just really wanted to figure out how to support people to do the work more immediately and better, and not have us stand in the way. So we allocated immediately some rapid response resources to the tune of almost $2 million for COVID. And we're thinking about what we need to do today for the issue of today, which is Black liberation, and how Black liberation can really save this country from itself at times. And I am taking a cue from the young people who can point to people of my generation and say, you didn't do it, but we're doing it. And I want to lift them up, and I want to stand side by side and shoulder to shoulder with them. And so, yeah, we are having internal conversations about what we're going to do.
Michelle, I want to ask you to wade into local politics a bit. My question is, I talked to Ron Herndon last week, longtime Portland civil rights leader, who basically said, I just think they're focusing on the wrong thing. He said, yes, the police need to be reformed, but when is the state going to get serious about the systemic racism and the fact that, for example, banks have denied Blacks for decades the ability to borrow money to buy a home so they can find what is the really only way to economic security in this country, which is to have equity in the house. And he said, so when is the legislature going to deal with that? So I guess my question is his analysis right? And if so, unless it's too radical, why isn't Meyer Trust throwing its weight behind those sort of momentums?
Well, wait and see. Don't give us too long, but wait and see. And just to approach Ron, who is, someone that everybody should respect, and I respect as well, I think it's both. I don't think that we can actually do this without looking at the social and the political and the economic and the environmental. This is the moment. And so for me, I'm a middle-aged Black woman. My chances of getting stopped, they're there, but they're not like the chances of a young Black man.
And so, please, because I'll get a call from Ron. he was not in any way suggesting there doesn't need to be reform. His concern is that us Oregonians are all going to feel great when we come out of a special session and we've banned the use of tear gas or the chokehold, and that we're all going to go back to our living rooms and feel
yeah, that would not be a good outcome. I mean, I don't know who the us Oregonians are that would feel great about that, but I know that there's not a single, I would say that this Oregonian won't feel good if that's the outcome. So this is the moment for us to push the whole spectrum. So I signed on to a letter by an institution called the Association for Black Foundation Executives, AFFE. And it was a statement by Black CEOs of philanthropic foundations. I think there were 66 of us. I didn't realize there were that many of us out there from around the country that basically threw down the gauntlet and said that economic stability, more than economic stability, ending our vulnerability, because we have never been a part of America's wealth. We've always been a part of producing it, but we've never been a part of being able to gain stability from it. Like, that must happen. That is a #1 issue. But you also have to talk about narrative. You also have to talk about history and the way we're seen. You also have to talk about how we wrap around supports and how we love Black people. So part of that love is to make sure that we can survive. You know, it's really important to get an education, but if you don't think that you're going to actually live past 16, then, you know, why even bother? So, yeah, economic stability is economic progress, a piece of the pie. It's all relevant.
Michelle, a perhaps unfair question, but
Love those.
Here we are, we're all sort of facing our past and our institutions and our traditions, and we're tearing down statues. Fred Meyer, I think Fred was his name, when he emigrated from Germany and created Fred Meyer stores, a remarkable capitalist, you know, built an amazing retail empire, whose fortune is basically the corpus of the Meyer Trust, that with proven investment you folks have made. He was far from an enlightened individual. He was anti-consumer. He opposed unit pricing. He apparently, according to contemporaries, was not a racially enlightened person. He totally opposed zoning. So, unfair question. How does one think about that?
It's not an unfair question at all. It's something that, as a Black leader, I have had to think about my entire life. It's not an unfair question at all. It's the reality. Our wealth, philanthropic wealth, is really just a measure of systemic racism and economic oppression that this country has been grappling with from the very beginning. So you have to make it, I have to make a decision. At one point I had to make a decision. Am I gonna fight and push from the outside, or am I gonna fight and push from the inside? And different times in my career, I've done different spaces and places, and now is the opportunity to do something different at Meyer.
Well, I can go on the Meyer Memorial Trust and read a biography of Fred Meyer.
Right.
It's a pretty whitewashed biography.
Ah, okay.
That's my point.
Ah.
We're all being forced to conform.
This is, yeah. So here is a wonderful example of history is told by those who tell it, right? It's understood by those who tell it. And it's a wonderful example of why we don't understand a lot of what Black people's contributions have been, what happened with Japanese internment. So, right, Fred Meyer was a white man of his time. He didn't do anything differently than the average white person did in his time. And I think, and I actually have no problem saying that or acknowledging what the history of the money is and who he was. But the flip side is that Fred Meyer actually was a supporter of innovation. He was a supporter of women. There are a couple of really good stories, which, you know, we have actually ground truth about him putting women in positions that men just weren't doing at that time. And, you know, as we are looking at the issues of equality, whether it's racial equality, gender equality, LGBTQ issues, it takes sometimes one person to actually do something right that might show how other people need to do it. So there are some things that I'm pretty proud of with Fred Meyer. When he came